Welcome to this Wise Living Water podcast. Our messages are dedicated to guiding individuals towards a closer relationship with our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Dr. Norman Wise is thrilled to embark on this journey with you. Through these podcasts, we aim to provide insightful material that will inspire and uplift your spiritual journey. Join us now as we delve into the teachings of Jesus Christ and explore how we can apply His wisdom to our daily lives. Together, we will reflect on the power of faith, love, and compassion in shaping our existence.
So there is, in fact, there's some of this that this comes to us and is going to be part of totally outside our control, and there's another part of this that we can influence and we can control. For instance, let's say that you were really stressed out, and so you put on some classical music, you put your feet up, you open up the window and you look over beautiful scenery. What do you think that level one emotions are when you create that environment? Are those good or bad level one emotions? For most people, those are very good level one emotions. And what you're doing, you're working from the outside in. You're saying, I want to do some things that are going to bring down my stress, and so you actually create an environment, and that's part of what we'll talk about. You can have that control. A lot of us don't think we have that control. You do. I had somebody, they were stressed out, and I said, listen, just every 2 hours at work, take a 10-minute break, because they could do that. They just never had done that. And they began taking a walk around the building for 10 minutes, and suddenly their stress levels go down. The only thing they did was they changed purposely something about their physical environment that could bring about a physical and would bring about a physical lower level of stress. Because stress is both A, level 1, and B, level 2, due to our story. But you see, we can work on managing our emotions both at level 1 and level 2. Now, there's some things you do not control. That serenity prayer. How many people know the beginning of the serenity prayer? Okay, go ahead. Somebody give me the serenity prayer. Go ahead.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. You want me to do the whole thing?
No, that's good. We'll just stop there. But the whole thing is good, by the way. So the reality is, one of the first things we have to ask ourselves about reality, and by the way, this does lower stress, what are the things today that I have control over, and what are the things I don't have control over? Now, let's see. Growing older. Will you be one day older tomorrow than you started off today at? Some of you are wondering. I can give you the answer is yes. Okay? You have no control. Okay? Did you have control whether today would include a seminar on managing emotions? Yes. You could either be here or be at the beach, stay in bed. You had a whole lot of different decisions that put you here this morning, and so you influenced your environment. You put yourself in an environment that was going to give you some information. See, that was under your control. So the good news is, I honor you. You've made a good choice so far today. So that's good. By this early in the morning to have made a good choice, that is a good way to start today. Now, this is what we call simple emotions. This is also easier for us to control, although again, limited, because in some cases there won't be anything we can do. There are some people with chronic pain. My wife is in chronic pain. She has pain 24 hours, 7 days a week, and the only question is whether she's going to have a lot of pain or less pain, but she's going to have pain 24 hours a day. And she starts off knowing that every day. Every day, that's beyond her control right now. Okay? And so she has to decide, what is she going to do about that? How's she going to frame that? She had a whole lot of decisions she can make about level 1 pain, but she can't make a decision, I'm not going to feel level 1 pain today except by really doing something foolish like that vodka we talked about earlier. Okay. Temporarily, wiping yourself out might, at least consciously wipe out the pain, but then it would lead to more pain. So anything as a reasonable response, she doesn't really have any control. But this is simple. Then level 2 pain. Level 2 pain. By the way, you can cause people level 1 pain. How many of you believe that? Absolutely. If you hit somebody, unless they're sensors, unless they're suffering from the Superman syndrome, they're going to feel pain. If you curse somebody, they're going to feel pain. If you lie to somebody, they're going to feel level 1 pain. If there's all kinds of ways that you can damage and hurt another person at level 1. By the way, you can cause people level harm by giving them pleasure. What if you did feed your children only sugar and caffeine? That would not be an act of love. So you're giving people pleasure, but that pleasure is really short-term and destructive, and therefore you're actually hurting them by supposedly giving them warm fuzzies. Pleasure. So you see the fact, now when a parent disciplines a child, their level 1 reaction to discipline is, thank you, mom and dad, for disciplining me. No, what is their level 1 reaction? Yeah, they feel pain. But that pain is actually good pain, as, again, making a distinction between discipline and abuse. But if it's really discipline, then that's good pain, because again, sometimes we need the environment to give us negative feedback. But you see, so we are responsible. I'm responsible for not giving you destructive pleasure and not giving you destructive pain. And every person has a responsibility to consider, am I giving to the other people in my life at a level 1 level what I should give them? Some people try to say, well, I'm not responsible for that. You didn't need to feel that. Well, only if they were dead would they not feel that. What are you talking about? So that is a cop-out. If I hurt someone at level 1, I'm responsible for the pain I caused. That's part of the 100% rule. I'm 100% responsible for anything destructive at level 1 that I give to another person. And that is in my control. And we shouldn't try to avoid that responsibility. Now, level 2, now I'm responsible. You're responsible. What am I going to do with what I felt, good or bad? These are emotions developed by my interpretation of the pain or pleasure that occurs at level 1. And these are complex emotions because our stories, we might have 2 different stories going on in our heads at the same time. We might have a story coming from our childhood, and for the first 10 years, your family programmed you with a certain worldview, and that worldview is kind of the basic operating system that most of us still maintain. Some of us have never examined, and so people look and they react to something according to how they were raised in the first 10 years. And then other things, we might have had some people tell us something over here, and so we listen to that. And then, of course, we go faithfully to that great center of wisdom, which is commonly called a television set. And we sit at the feet of the wisdom of our culture as disciples and allow it to program us in the light, and allow it to speak to us both subconsciously and consciously, allowing it to adapt and tell us what normal is, and gaining from it all of the wisdom of our culture. Isn't that great to know? You see, what was before the television set was the fire in the middle of the village, where the elders and the people of the village would sit around and tell the great stories of the tribe. And the great stories of the tribe would be the framework from which the members of the tribe would interpret. And they'd hear about the heroes, and they'd hear about the villains, and they'd hear about the interpretation of reality. And now we don't have a fireplace where we all gather. We meet in the, internet village, and we sit around the new fire. And the new fire has stories being told. But sometimes the elders of this village aren't very wise sometimes. So you need to be discerning. By the way, you can never blame anybody else for the bad story you have, because you were the one that adopted it. You were the one that said yes to it. You were the one that never criticized it. You were the one. So if you've got a bad story, the best thing you can do is figure it out. Because you're responsible for the story you tell yourself about the circumstances of your life. And there is one story you should be seeking to know, and that is God's story. See, God has an actual interpretation of your life that is the healthy, real story. And the other stories are either just partly true or barely true or absolute lies. And so that is going to have a massive impact on whether you're having healthy emotions, productive emotions, or destructive emotions. And that you and I can control. These are complex. Now, one of the things we have to, how many times have you got the impression that emotions don't make sense? Any of you got that they're irrational? Yeah. No. Emotions make perfect sense. Emotions can be dissected, analyzed, and totally brought down to full understanding. As a counselor, by the way, we have a counseling center here, Living Water Counseling, and we're Christian-based counseling, so any of you ever need counseling, you can contact us for that as well. We do seminars. We also have Family Life Skills, which is an intensive 7-month class. So if you don't know much about us, call us. We'll be glad to send you information about the whole scope of what we do. But the thing is that part of what a counselor is trying to do is listen to the emotions, listen to what people are going through, and help them in a process of understanding and making sense of what they're feeling. Because every emotion can be rationally, logically, and reasonably understood if you had enough information. There is no such thing as an irrational emotion. It's just that some emotions are healthy and some emotions are not healthy. Some emotions are helpful, some emotions are destructive in how they're used, actually. Because actually every emotion has a place in our life, but is this an appropriate emotional response? Is this a healthy emotional response to what's going on? So, first thing is the physical environment. Yeah, your physical environment is going to have an impact. Let us say that at 2 a.m, the neighbors next door suddenly crank up rock music to, level 10. Does the physical environment impact your emotions in any way? Yeah. Now, it could be you just love rock music. So you open up the window and say, this is cool, they're giving me a free concert. But for most people, that's an irritation, okay? But so the physical environment does influence it, and again, you have some control and some control you don't. But you're going to have level 1 impact from your physical environment. Your internal environment is your biological condition, your physical body. It's also got to do with the subconscious, okay? It has to do with your subconscious, which has been framed and which is holding a lot of stuff. Have any of you ever, you just kind of start the day and you feel depressed, but you don't know why? Ever have that? Yeah, well, that's because you see this internal environment, and that's that subconscious part of us. It's working on something, and we don't have but it's creating emotions, okay? And so the emotions are sometimes coming out of this, some part. It's not the idea of the heart in the Bible is more complex than this, but part of the definition of the heart is what we call the subconscious. And so that subconscious can put us in a bad mood, and we don't even know why we're in a bad mood, because it's really coming from that internal state. Now, it also can be coming from the fact that you ate pizza at 2 a.m. after they woke you up with a rock concert. And since you ate the cold pizza, now you have to go to work, and so you have an internal upset stomach, and that's producing bad emotions, so you're grumpy because you don't have sleep. That's internal. Then, mental environment, this has to do with the conscious idea of what story am I telling myself. And this is huge because this is where we can have the greatest control. Now, of course, also we just mentioned earlier, nutrition does matter. What you eat can influence how you feel. And so that has a very wide range of things, but the more healthy you eat, usually the better emotional state you're in. But don't go crazy about it because then you have stress, so that's not good. Now, why should we manage our emotions? Why are we even bothering? Some say, hey, listen, I am who I am. I feel who I feel. I'm not going to be fake. You're going to take what you get. And if I feel like yelling at you, I'm going to yell at you. I'm going to yell at people I love. And I'm going to just fully express. And if I feel like having sex with you out in the front yard, we're going to do it. Because why should we hinder ourselves? Let's go, baby, And so these people want to say, if you try to restrict me in any way, well, this is just, and these are what we place under lawless people, okay? And they just say, let the emotions flow. Let it all hang out. I think the 60s had something to do with that. But, the thing is that I don't want anybody to manage. You can't tell me how to, you can't. And so these people, they resist. Now, of course, a group of these people, we know them well. Have you ever cared for a 2-year-old? Okay. So you see, this is the philosophy of a 2-year-old. A 2-year-old is saying, I'm going to express whatever I feel here. There's no control. But you see, it's lacking maturity. It's lacking the idea that you're going to hurt people and you're going to hurt yourself, and that without thought or plan, your life is not going to run well. Okay? And so lawlessness doesn't work. Okay? And then, quite honestly, though, until a person comes to that aha moment themselves, you're never going to win this argument with that person, because they're going to say, no, this is the way we should feel. And of course, the problem is maybe it's working with them in the fact that other people are giving them their way, enabling them to be irresponsible. So at that level, it seems to be working. But eventually, they're going to end up in trouble. The real world will give them some feedback. And they understand, if you haven't yet come to the awakening of that, you're going to live that. Because again, that's the story you're telling yourself. The story you're telling yourself is, I should be free to feel any emotion I want to feel, any way I want to feel it, and do whatever I want to based on it, and I'm just going to be me. And I'm not going to hinder myself in any way. It's really all about me. You knew that. So the thing is, there has to be a change of story before even this idea of managing emotions can take place. Now, other people, such as myself, most of the emotions that we felt were painful, destructive, scary. Then we came to a conclusion, life would be better off without these things. And so we started to tell ourselves a story that our emotions were our enemy, and the emotions at best would have to be tolerated but suppressed. And so what we wanted to do is really kind of wipe out emotions, and we wanted to push them down, and we wanted to in fact say, I don't feel anything, because that made us stronger, and that made us more in control, and that put us in a position. You always fight two battles, lawlessness and legalism. And this was really legalism. I'm going to create a group of rules for my life, and I'm going to not feel these things, and emotions are bad, and I'm going to be led just by my mind, and my mind alone, as though the mind isn't emotional, which of course is a false idea. But the whole thing is that I'm going to do that. And so what really happened is that the emotions got stuck. Now, we affectionately call the first group of people skunks. The people that simply express whatever they feel, however they want to feel it, skunks. Anybody ever get skunked by a skunk? Never had that experience. You should go out and find a skunk, and that way you would existentially know what it feels like. But it's kind of painful. The thing is, it stinks. And the skunk is just doing what comes naturally. And so that's the skunk. The other is the turtle. And the turtle says, how do you handle those bad influences that could possibly bring you pain? You just go inside your shell. The only trouble is that in real life, all turtles are living in microwaves. Get the picture? Okay. The reality is the pressure is building up inside the shell. And so when the turtle blows, when eventually the emotions that have been denied and suppressed break the shell, an exploding turtle is more dangerous than a skunk. Now, the answer to most turtles when their shell explodes, which is very embarrassing for a turtle. Oh, that's an embarrassing moment. I remember the first time my shell blew up. Oh, it was so embarrassing. Oh, that was bad. My friend Bruce, who was one of my best friends, he had decided to be part of the in-group. You know that this never happens. And I was not part of the in-group. It used to be Bruce and me and then the popular people. You know how that is, But Bruce and me, we had our own little world and our own little, circle. And so Bruce, though, got tired of the little circle, and so he joined the popular kids over here. And then they were on the bus, and Bruce joined the popular kids in making fun of me, because I think that was part of the price tag of being in the in-group. Let's go ahead and so I was sitting there as normal, trying to just suppress all the different things I thought and putting it inside. But because it was Bruce and because of all that, the emotions were higher than normal. And do you remember the old lunch buckets? The ones made out of metal? I mean, the real stuff, okay? And the thermos, really nice thermos, heavy, insulated, thing weighed like 3 pounds, right? Yeah. And so this was, and so suddenly my shell broke, because most of the time, turtle. I live turtle. My shell broke, and I took that lunchbox, and I threw it, and I hit Bruce on the head, which is not good. And that brought about repercussions. Well, out of that, of course, after getting all the discipline and all the yelling and all the screaming and everybody telling me how could I do that, yada, 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 I went home, and of course, my answer is a good turtle. Must have a stronger shell, must have a stronger shell, must have a stronger shell. So we built a stronger shell. But of course, eventually, see, that blew too. That's another story for another day. So, level 1, pain, you can have control. You can have some control here. You can decide what type of environments I'm going to have. You can decide to keep a Sabbath day. 1 day out of 7 you will rest. I'm going to take a day in order to allow myself emotionally, physically, and every other day rest. The world will not stop if you unplug for 24 hours. God just gives us as basically a structure of life. Take one 24-hour period and just stop and allow yourself to rest physically and emotionally and every other way, gain some strength spiritually, and then take on the other 6 days. See, that's level 1. So to a degree, see, I can put some things. I can decide I'm going to have some things. I can decide I'm going to start off the day and have a half hour where I just sit on my back porch and I have a cup of coffee and I breathe in the air real slowly. I can make those decisions, and I can do some level 1. I can know that when I go into a certain environment, it's very destructive for me, so I just don't go there. Okay? I avoid some environments because that's not good for me. God doesn't say, find out how spiritual you are. Go down the strip joints and see if you cannot lust. That's crazy. Keep yourself out of environments that cause you problems. Figure out what they are, and you can avoid them. Level 1. Okay? Level 2, we have a lot of control. Because now we can begin looking and saying, well, what story am I telling myself about things, and how is that influencing then my bigger picture of life? Because you see, your current lifestyle, I will tell you what your lifestyle is right now. Your lifestyle is whatever your story in your head is producing the emotions that make you take the actions and say the words that you do. In other words, it's a completely logical outcome. Now, you can change the script. You're the script writer. You can change the environment. You can change some stuff here, but if you keep everything exactly the way it is, if you keep your story the same, you keep your environment the same, you keep everything in your life the same, you're going to keep on getting the same words, the same actions, and the same attitudes. Because that's the outcome of the chemistry that you have in your life. And so you have to change the formula to change the outcome. Your willpower does not have the ability to simply stand at the bottom of this and say, okay, I will keep you from saying foolish things. I am willpower. Basically, you ever see, the old snowball at the top of the mountain and the avalanche? What actually happens if a person runs out, there's an avalanche out there, in the mountains and stuff, and there's a great big avalanche in the Swiss mountains, there's all this snow coming out. Somebody wants to help the situation, so they run out and they pull up their arms and saying, stop, avalanche, I command you. Well, outside a miracle from God, where actually God says, have pity on that fool, and suddenly intervenes, and sometimes God does that. Of course, at that point, that poor fool could say, oh, look, I stopped the avalanche. God says, no, I stopped the avalanche. Okay? I didn't want you dead. But except for those rare occasions where God may supernaturally come in and stop the avalanche, what happens to the poor fellow? He gets buried. Well, that's your willpower. Willpower was never meant to be at the bottom of the hill trying to stop the avalanche of emotions that have been created by your story. Avalanche, your willpower, was supposed to be up here, controlling the environment where you could, and also controlling the story. And guess what? You either only get a good avalanche, which you're happy you have this huge amount of passion because it's headed in the right direction and it's going to accomplish great things for God and you, or there's no avalanche because the snowball never got pushed off the mountain. So you see, management of emotions mean catch them early. Trying to control emotions where they're at level 10, well, that's a tough job. You can still do it, by the way. You can just step back and say, I need to be by myself and get these things de-escalated. But don't count on willpower to solve that problem. You don't have a lack of willpower. Isn't it funny, too, what we do when willpower fails to do that? What do we do? Anybody know what you do? Willpower comes out of the snow. We sent willpower down there. What do we say to willpower after it digs itself out of the snow? What do you say to yourself? You say to willpower what? Yeah, you start yelling at poor willpower. Why aren't you stronger? What's wrong with you? You take it out and you whip it, you flog it, because that always makes willpower better. You call yourselves names, you call yourself stupid, you call yourself weak. And by the way, calling yourself weak always makes you stronger, right? Yeah. And so we beat ourselves up and they say, you had enough? Okay, next time I put you in an avalanche, you're going to stop it, right? Yeah. Just don't hurt me anymore. Okay. Nah. None of the above. That doesn't work for you. Guess what? I'll give you a secret. It doesn't work for anybody. There's not like there's some secret people out there that have really strong Superman willpowers and they're doing it. No. It's failing for 100% of humanity. Welcome to the club. Okay? Well, how do we do this managing of emotions? First of all, we watch our biological states. Am I sleeping a decent number of hours? Am I eating relatively the right foods? By the way, you need to know how to self-nurture yourself. You need to have sometimes, just foods that are joyful foods for you. And sometimes you need to put them into your process. My wife knows that I'm feeling bad. Meatloaf is a remedy. But this is a very personal list. You may hate meatloaf. My kids are in that. My meatloaf causes no joy to anyone else in my family, which is an advantage because I get to eat it all. So I'm actually happy about the fact no one else joins me in that. But we have to, we can decide what can I do to create a supportive, nurturing environment. And at times of stress especially, I can make some decisions. I may want to do some healthy things in order to help me. Exercise can work in here and so forth. So all those decisions we can make. We can control our physical environments. We can make them soothing. We can create some spaces of soothing environments. We can avoid environments where we know are just going to be destructive. We can choose to respond slowly. This is one of the most important elements. Speed kills in life. You don't get extra points for not listening, speaking quickly, and losing control. You don't get extra points in the game of life. So when pain is coming in, when pleasure is coming in, when we're having a high emotional level 1 thing, we take a step back and we stop for a moment and we think about it. We think, how would a sane, stable, and spiritual person respond to this pain or this pleasure? How is God looking at this moment? I take a deep breath, literally. And I ask myself, how should I really interpret this? In other words, if you don't slow down, you will most likely act unwisely. It's only in a very few circumstances of life that are life-threatening that we have to respond quickly or we'll die, and those are rare. Most of the time, we are saying what we should not say because we said it before we thought about it. Most of the time, we're doing what we ought not do because we did it before we thought about it. Most of the time, our attitude is going into the dumpster because we didn't take time to pray and say, Lord, help me handle what's happening. And by the way, this process of slowing down, it involves two things, prayer and thinking and prayer. Thoughtful prayer. It means stepping back into the presence of God and understanding that God is part of the environment. And it is also saying, I'll tell you a secret. Have you ever had people really wanting you to make a decision quickly? Anybody have that? They just you've got to decide right now. And sometimes that can be in personal relationships, and that's always, I don't know, I think there's something, car salesmen have an addiction to this. I don't know. It's always got to decide now. I have made millions of decisions in my life, and so have you. It's really hard for me to find even one where I am sorry that I said, listen, I tell you what, I want to think about this and pray about it for 24 hours, and I'll get back to you tomorrow. But I can think of a ton that I made on the spur of the moment, without hardly any thought or any prayer, and I had the Monday morning moment of, oy vey. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? Why did I commit to that? Anybody else in that boat? So you see, you begin telling yourself the truth. The track record is that when I don't stop, when I don't slow down, when I go fast, when I live my life fast, usually I harm myself and others. And that's where a lot of my mistakes are coming from. And that's where a lot of my destructive emotions are coming from. Okay? Now, the problem is our society says speed is good. Spontaneity is great. Don't think, just do it. And the problem is that does, in fact, bring a great adrenaline rush, but there can be a great cost to adrenaline rushes. By the way, adrenaline does impact your emotions. You have to hear yourself. I was talking to a friend, and I said, well, what story are you telling yourself about this circumstance at work? And the guy said, I don't know. I said, well, who should I ask? Right now, what I can tell you is today, in your head, you will speak to yourself somewhere between 15,000 and 30,000 words. You have a narrator going on that is constantly placing your entire life within an overall story and arch. And a lot of that can be happening subconsciously, but many times it surfaces. And yes, it is true, and it's okay. I know that about you. You talk to yourself. Because everybody does. That's another secret we don't like people to know. And what you're doing in talking to yourself is you're reinforcing the story. You're reinforcing the interpretation. You are reminding yourself of exactly, and you're building up the emotions, because once you can hear your words, well, that the subconscious listens to, because you see your voice since the age of 10 is the voice of command, and your subconscious listens to you. If you call yourself names, your subconscious listens to you. If you praise yourself, your subconscious listens to you. Whatever you say, whatever it hears, you are now the voice of command, and it says, okay, that's what I should believe. Congratulations, that's your new job description. But a lot of time, we're not paying attention to what we're saying. We're not paying attention to what we're telling ourselves. We couldn't tell anybody our story because we're not listening to it ourselves. But that story is ruling your life. It is creating your lifestyle. That is the story. That's the script. You are the script writer. You're making your lifestyle. Nobody else. And if you got a bad story, you have to debate yourself.
Thank you for choosing to be part of the Wise Living Water podcasts with Dr. Norman Wise. We hope these podcasts serve as a source of inspiration and enlightenment as we grow in our faith together. Our content is designed to offer wisdom, encouragement, and guidance for those seeking a deeper connection with their faith. Whether you're just beginning your spiritual exploration or have been on this path for years, there's something here for everyone. If you have any comments or suggestions about today's message, please send an email to wiselivingwaterchannel@gmail.com.